President Trump's tech support, Elon Musk, has been shaking up Washington with his DOGE crusade to cut government waste as he becomes public enemy number one for the Democrats, who are hell-bent on destroying his companies and making him the boogeyman of tonight's special elections. One of those races, Musk says, could affect the destiny of humanity. The billionaire has been rallying voters in Wisconsin to get behind conservative Brad Schimmel in today's high-stakes Supreme Court race. Elon Musk joins us now for an exclusive interview. Thank you so much for joining us, Elon. We are thrilled to have you on The Five.
Thank you for having me.
We're delighted to have you. So why is this race in Wisconsin so important? And what is your response to Democrats who've tried to make tonight's elections a referendum on you?
Well, the reason tonight's elections are so important is that the judge race will decide whether the Wisconsin districts get redrawn. They're going to try to gerrymander Wisconsin to remove 2 Republican seats. And as you know, the House is currently Republican by a razor-thin margin, which means that losing this judge race has a good chance of causing Republicans to lose control of the House. If you lose control of the House, there will be nonstop impeachment hearings. There will be nonstop hearings and subpoenas. And they're going to do everything possible to stop the agenda that the American people voted for. When they voted for President Trump with a popular vote and the House and the Senate in November, they're going to do everything possible to stop the president's agenda. And so it's incredibly important that people in Wisconsin go out and vote right now, contact their friends and family, contact their neighbors, and take them to the polling stations, which close at 8 p.m. Tonight. You can actually register to vote and vote today. It's an extremely tight race. This is a race that will be decided by maybe 0.5% or 1%. It's really neck and neck. And so this could be decided by a single voter, potentially. That's how close it is. And if you know people in Wisconsin, call them right now and ask them to go and vote. And again, ask them to bring their friends, their family, their neighbors. This is a crucial election. There is also a ballot initiative to enshrine voter ID in the Wisconsin Constitution, which is essential for election integrity.
Okay. You know, the interesting part of that is for years, people have never really understood, Elon, the significance of this Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. But you make it very clear in terms of gerrymandering and the attempt then, obviously, to change the number of people, congressional seats in Wisconsin. So thank you for that. So we're going to go around the table and continue to ask some questions. So I'll start with you, Greg Gutfeld.
All right, Elon, great to see you, as always. I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. One, I've noticed in the past you seem incapable of being risk averse. If you see something you want to try, you try it. And so I'm wondering, what kind of advice would you give to a young person whose fear of failure keeps them from taking risks that would actually enrich their lives, whether it's career or personal life? And my next question is, when the hell are you doing my show? I've left voicemail messages. I've sent carrier pigeons. I get no response.
Well, I'll be happy to do your show. I've seen pieces of your show, and it's very funny. Actually, it's my style of humor, so I look forward to doing your show.
Awesome.
With respect to what to tell young people, I think it's always good when thinking about something that you're afraid of. When thinking about fear, look fear straight in the eye, and it will disappear.
Okay. All right.
The nature of fear is that people don't look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it directly, and it will be gone.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good advice. All right, Jesse.
Jessica, look at me. Look at me. Face your fears, Jessica. Elon, how are you? I'm Jesse Waters. Good to see you. I'm not going to beg for you to come on my show. I know it'll happen eventually. You said the other day
Absolutely.
you uncovered some evidence that there was massive Social Security fraud and that arrests were imminent.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that? And what can you tell us about what you've seen politicians do to make massive amounts of money off of the federal government, like Nancy Pelosi? Please.
Yes. So we've encountered. There's really so much for it. It's deciding what should be prosecuted first because it's such a long list. You have to actually prioritize the list. We convey the list to the Department of Justice. The DOJ has a process that they go through to review and think about it. The wheels of justice turn slowly. In fact, obviously, I have a maniacal sense of urgency. So to me, when I see that terrible fraud has happened, I'm like, why haven't we arrested someone already? But as the saying goes, the wheels of justice turn slowly but surely. And I think probably the person that stole 400,000 Social Security numbers, at least, maybe more, will be arrested hopefully this week. With respect to the non-governmental organizations, these sort of fake NGOs, I think there needs to be a number of arrests in that regard as well, because these are fake charities where mostly Democrats, I don't want to be clear. There's sometimes a little bit of Republican in there because they sometimes throw the Republicans a bone to say, "Hey, be quiet about this." So that's where you start getting the uniparty thing going on. But it is overwhelmingly to Democrats, and they give give billions of dollars to NGOs run by Democrats that then go through a whole network of additional NGOs. It's a giant money laundering scheme. Really, at this point, I think the word NGO and money laundering are almost synonymous.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you.
Makes sense to me. Kennedy?
Hello, Judge. And hello, Elon. Welcome to the Five. Great to talk
Hi.
to you. So
Thank
let's talk a little bit about some of the anti-Tesla violence. Your car company was...
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it was a leftist dream come true. It was technologically advanced. It was the word of mouth was better than any car company, arguably, on the market. And now the left is trying to make it a pariah by tying their anti-Elon politics to violence. How do you talk the unhinged off the ledge, and how do you counter that violence that you're seeing at Tesla dealerships?
Yes, it is remarkable that there is so much violence. People have burnt cars, they've fired bullets into dealerships, they've scratched swastikas into Teslas of the innocent people that they're just going about their lives. They've done nothing wrong. And Tesla's done nothing wrong as a company. And so I find it ironic and incredibly hypocritical that the same Democrat politicians who would want to throw someone in prison for 20 years simply for watching things at January 6th, but not actually doing any violence, you don't hear a single word from them about the actual violence happening against Tesla. What incredible hypocrites they are. It's outrageous. I mean, really, this is fundamentally a case of terrorism. It's wide-scale domestic terrorism with the purpose of intimidation, and it's harming innocent people. It's really terrible. And I think what we actually have to get to are the people who are organizing and paying for these attacks and protests. That's who we really need to go after, because the people who are actually throwing the Molotov cocktails, they are the foot soldiers. Right. But we need to go after the generals, and we're going to do so. The president has made it very clear that we're going to go after those that are paying and organizing these violent attacks. And Attorney General Bondi has said the same thing. I believe that is exactly what will happen.
Do you know who they are?
We're coming for them.
Do you know who those generals are?
We know. We do.
Yes. And hopefully the prosecution will be for RICO and an organized criminal enterprise, which makes the penalties even more serious. And now to Jessica.
Yes, absolutely. These are serious crimes where the organizers and pushers of mass violence will go to prison for a very long time.
That's right. Okay.
And I hope they see this segment.
Well, we'll play it again. Jessica.
Okay, well, liberal Tesla lover here. My sister has 2 in her family, so have not thrown any Molotov cocktails recently. But I wanted to talk to you about what DOGE has been doing. So you've been making cuts to a lot of the agencies that have open investigations and regulatory battles with your companies. At the same time, you continue to get billions in government contracts. Tesla gets billions in subsidies. How do you explain that to the American people?
Well, everything that DOGE does is an open book. So I think the most transparent the most transparent organization in government ever. Every single DOGE action is listed on the doge.gov website. It's also listed on the X handle. So if anyone has a concern about any one of those actions, they can bring that up. They can raise that. And I do want to say, like, sometimes we make a mistake. Nobody bats 1,000. We will at times make a mistake, but we'll act very quickly to correct it. I am under such an extreme spotlight, so much scrutiny, that it's literally impossible for me to get away with anything nefarious. And obviously, nor do I wish to. So this is a case where we have radical transparency. We're actually willing to admit that we do make mistakes. Often people are not willing to admit they make mistakes, but we are. But we want to emphasize we fix them quickly, and we're trying to do the right thing for the American taxpayer, for the American people. And I think history will be the judge that what we've done here and what we're doing is a very good thing for the strength and future of America.
Okay. So, Elon, for one last time, why don't you remind the viewers why the election in Wisconsin is so important to America as well as the Trump agenda?
Absolutely. So the reason that because it does seem like, why isn't this rather a small thing? And it's happening, ironically, of course, on April Fool's Day. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is very real. So a judge race election in Wisconsin will decide whether or not the Democrats can gerrymander Wisconsin in order to remove 2 House seats from Republican to Democrat. Because of the razor-thin margins in the House, that would mean potentially a flip of the House from Republican to Democrat. That means at the next election, roughly less than 2 years from now, the House will then immediately take action to stop the president's agenda. And it's always worth reminding people the president was elected with a majority of the people of America, a meaningful majority of the popular vote. So all the president is trying to do is implement the will of the people. And they're trying to stop the will of the people through judicial trickery. And in fact, in general, there is a huge problem with activists that are actually politicians in judges' robes. And that needs to stop. It's undermining the integrity, the reality, and the perception of the integrity of the legal system of the United States. And these fake judges should be ashamed of themselves. They're just pretending to be judges, but they're not. They're making the law instead of implementing the law. It's wrong.
Yes, and they're activists. And you say that you can both register and vote today?
Yes, you can both register and vote today. And the voting stations close at 8 p.m. local time.
All right. Elon Musk, thank you so much for being with us on The Five. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.